My brother, can you hear me?
I can hear you, my brother. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. How you doing, man?
I'm well. I'm well. Sorry, I'm just trying to put this phone on a stand.
No stress. Do your thing. Do your thing.
There we go. We're on the stand. Is everything coming clear?
Everything is clear. You're 100%. I can see your background looks great. That's awesome, man. You're all set. That's great.
Nice, brother.
Uh, Dope stuff. Dope stuff. So how you been, man? How was the event? Was it yesterday?
It was yesterday. It went well. It was great. It was great. Very nice to get recognition. I think one of those sayings goes that every artist just wants to be loved. So it's nice to get recognition. It was beautiful. I enjoyed it.
And
And
what I love is
how's things on your side?
no, I'm good, man. I'm good. Yesterday was a busy morning. I was
Yeah.
out grabbing some content, came home and didn't go anywhere for the rest of the day. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but I was gonna say it's always good when you also, because some people choose the recognition they want to get, because they
Yeah.
feel they're a certain way. So if you're able to just appreciate what comes your way, regardless of where it's coming from, and that's dope. That means you'll go far.
100%, 100%. I always say that everything has value. Everything has value. So it just depends how deep you want to look into it to see if you can find the value. So everything has value. And you make music for people to appreciate it, to love your music, listen to your music. So if anybody says that I like your music, or you've been doing a good thing, here's something for your service to music, it's a big statement. It's a big statement. Doesn't matter who it comes from.
That's dope. All right, man, let's get into it. I've got this small platform I call Know the Ledge. I haven't done this in a minute. It's been a while. But it's always good to meet people like you who are working, who really want to go get themselves out there. And it that's what kind of inspires me to just keep doing what I do. So just for the record, why don't you introduce yourself to my audience, let them know who you are, what you do for a living, and where you're from, most importantly.
100%. So I'm Southern Africa's very own Don Dada, multi-platinum, multi-genre recording artist, the first Southern African to be distributed by Bob Marley's Tough Gong International. Under my belt, I also hold three official Mandela tracks, speaking in terms of the Mandela family. Two for Madiba, which were done for his 100th year birthday celebration. One of them is a remix with the Mahotela Queens, which achieved multi-platinum status in the space of 4 months. And the third song was done for Mama Winnie, performed at her memorial when she had passed away for the ANC at the All Black and Dukes event, as well as holding songs,
That's
great
that's
songs and
cool.
albums. Sorry, I'm just getting confused. I've got so much work that I've done. So an album entitled Kebulan, which was also credited as being an important part of Black history by the SABC. Yeah, so much work that I've done, as well as going and performing at Bob Marley's house for his birthday celebrations, working between Kingston, Jamaica, and Johannesburg, South Africa, working with the Reggae Powerhouse Band. I also have works with Sly and Robbie, who worked with people like Colin Self. I'm also a radio host on Bogart Men Radio. Is a luxury line clothing store with 54 stores across Johannesburg, South Africa, which is an amazing thing. So I do the reggae segments on there every Saturday from 1 to 2 p.m. I also do a lot of charity works, working with the Nkosi Foundation.
Uh,
Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
I don't know, nowadays with Africa, it's become so weird with the internet. Like a few years ago, it was I think coming back from COVID, like internet and everybody getting on the net now, it kind of messed things up. Because
Yeah.
like I used to do this every day back then in 2020, and this never happened. But since 2022, it's just been interesting. But we keep it moving. We keep it moving. But anyway, in any case, you've done a lot, my brother.
I've done a
That's
lot. I've done a lot, and
wow.
I was just going to ultimate with yesterday being the recipient
Mm,
of award from the South African Up and Coming Musicians Association, giving me recognition for my long service to music, which is such a beautiful thing, especially at a young age. That means that I've really put in the work. And then we also talk about being a two-time nominee of the Zimbabwean Hip Hop Awards, which is a beautiful thing. So not only limited to South Africa, but touching the southern region. And next week we're also going to be in receiving an award for the most influential artist in KZN. So
wow.
also doing that. So a lot of beautiful things coming around us, you know.
That's dope, man. That's amazing. I love the fact that you're not afraid to kind of like just cross a border and add value in another country and also get recognition for that because it's not often that in any situation, especially in Southern Africa, where you get like someone from a certain country really getting recognized like that in a different country. And I think it's a lot of fear, right? But when it happens, it's always a plus. Why don't you break down your names for me? Because I see a lot of I see a lot there. I see a lot of different cultures in there. So I'm sure there was a thought process that went into giving yourself that stage name.
Oh, okay. So you're speaking of my stage name, Don
It-
Dada, or
it-
okay, I'll start with my original,
yeah.
Menelik Nestor Gibbons. So my name Menelik, well, that's a story that takes place before my birth, 1980, Harare, Zimbabwe. My mother met Robert Nesta Marley, otherwise known as Bob Marley, in the streets of Zimbabwe. They have a short conversation, and within the conversation, you know, questions about specifically Ethiopian syllabus in schools, and I believe up until today we don't really learn our country's histories like that. My mom, all she could answer was
Mm, mm, mm.
they're going through a hard time in Ethiopia. No, towards the end of a conversation, he said, "Look,
Something is wrong here. Oh,
sorry,
no,
back
that's
again.
cool.
I'll just continue. I'll just continue."
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
So you said, I would like you to make me a promise that, you know, you go back and you'll do your research on your African history. And one day, if you have a son, please name him after me. So 7 years later, I was born. My first name, Menelik, is named after the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba, Menelik the First, which is also the lineage of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I, proving that my mom went back and did a research on Ethiopian and African history. My middle name, Nesta, Robert Nesta Mali, Menelik Nesta Gibbons. So she kept the promise to also name me after him. And yeah, my stage name, Don Dada, it came about, you know, I started my career as a young rapper, and my style was, you know, very fiery. I was a very fiery young rapper. So, you know, they started saying, look, you the Don Dada, you running thing, especially because you look at the Jamaican connection and hip hop. So it was just a natural fit to say, you the Don Dada, you the boss of bosses, you running things. And that's how that came about.
Dope. There's like you said, there's so much culture and so much history there. I would even say just keep the entire lot as your stage name because it speaks to so many different things from your own family heritage to the story that you just told me with your mom meeting Bob Marley himself to your hip hop heritage to the Ethiopian heritage. I had the blessing of having been to Ethiopia and really having a first person experience of their history and culture and how it affects how it should affect Africans because
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot we don't know about ourselves, but Ethiopia has so much preserved knowledge about what Africa has done just from their perspective. And going there really just changed my life completely. And
100%.
yeah, and like in term and one thing I fight myself with is the relationship between Haile Selassie and Menelik II, right? Because I always feel like um, with Haile Selassie, of course, he's tied to a specific culture, right? Which ties pretty much the entire world in terms of reggae and Rastafarians. It's not Rastafarianism is not something that's tied to a single locality. It connects people around the world. But learning about Menelik II and what he achieved, really just gave me renewed pride about being African. About the fact that, listen, we're not we're not we're not just here for the sake of it. We didn't just happen to land out here. There's some things that we've done, and I tied that to my Tunis trip where I learned about Hannibal Barca, and these are just two guys. One from Ethiopia, another one from Tunisia, both African, black like you and me, who did some crazy stuff, just in their own rights. So, I mean, so much history there, and man, like you having that name, it's heavy.
Thank you, thank you. When you were speaking of Ethiopia, you brought back a memory of when I went to New York City, and I was my cousin. He stays in Boston, and he came all the way from Boston to come in and meet us in New York City. So he decided, look, let's go out for lunch in Harlem. So he took us for lunch in Harlem, and we ended up at an Ethiopian restaurant. And on the wall is a big mural of Menelik, King Menelik and King Tedros, and they're facing each other. And what's interesting is we're sitting right there having the lunch, and I'm Menelik sitting on one side, and my cousin's name is Tedros.
Oh
And
my
he's
God, that is
so
dope.
it's amazing.
That is dope. That's some surreal stuff right there. That's brilliant. I hope you snapped a picture.
We didn't, but it's captured in my mind. But we're gonna go back. I keep on
Yeah,
telling him, and
yeah, you
I told we
should.
gotta go back.
You need to recreate that because that's an amazing moment right there. It comes, I mean, if you recreate it, it'll be twice in a lifetime. Like that's amazing. So tell me a little bit about your musical journey, how you got started, and how you got to where you are now with the music that you're doing.
It's interesting. So my father is my biggest inspiration for being a musician. When I was younger, I used to have jam sessions with a lot of prominent musicians in the city. And my father is not a professional musician by trade, but he loves music a lot. He's a guitar player. I wouldn't really say a songwriter. He's more of a freestyler, which is where I also got my knack for freestyling from. So they would all come sit, play the guitar, and just start making up songs. And I'd listen to them, and I was like, "Look, I want to get involved in this." And around the same time, I had an older cousin who was staying with me, and he had a whole rack, like shoeboxes and shoeboxes and shoeboxes of hip hop that he had brought back from the States. And so I was just going through all of this stuff, and I'm listening to what my dad and them were doing, and I was like, "Look, I want to get involved, but I got a deep voice, so I think I'm gonna come in this with some rapping." And that's how I began like shaping up the process of rapping in my mind. But I hadn't yet really stepped into it until it was the last day at school in grade 8 of the first term, and the teacher had asked everybody to come to the front and to showcase their talents and so on. And so this one dude, his name was Bradley. We were in the same primary school together. So he went right to the front, and his homies started beatboxing the Rough Riders anthem. That's exactly it. And he started freestyling it. And his freestyle, he started dissing me. And I'm like, what's going on with this brother? You know what I mean? So he finished his freestyle and he went and he sat down. And so they asked anybody else want to do something. So I was like, yeah, me too. So I went up and I got my homie and he started giving me a beatbox. And then I started freestyling my response. And yeah, from there, I was just every day writing, rapping, freestyling. It just took off from there.
Ah, dope. And how did you transition to what the style? I don't know if I could call your style reggae or dancehall because it seems like it's a mixture of a little bit of everything. So how did you transition towards that?
Well, reggae music, as you hear, was in my blood before I was born. I mean, we're talking about my mom meeting Bob Marley, my father setting up dancehall sound systems, reggae sound systems, reggae movements in countries, working also. from Zimbabwe all the way to South Africa, just making reggae music fly. So it's something that's always been around me and been a part of me. My grandmother, big lover of reggae music, both my grandmothers actually. So it's just something that was always a part of me. So arguably leaning towards the hip hop, I guess, was a more of a weirder choice because
Mm,
I think as a younger generation, like you see the kids today going towards the amapiano, but they never grew up listening to it. I think it was one of those type of things. So going towards reggae music was really me going back towards my roots, and in so doing, also realizing that hip hop is also an offspring of reggae music. Because when you talk about African Bombada and you talk about DJ Cool Herc, taking the sound
mm.
system techniques
From
of
Jamaica.
Jamaica, sound clash, and adapting it to spinning the American records and thus creating hip hop, it's basically the same thing. So when I looked at it from that angle, I was like, it's kind of easy for me to create my own lane in this because I'm actually doing the new and the old. I'm creating something brand new. So that's how I started looking at it and leaning towards reggae music and incorporating it, as well as getting a little bit older and having a daughter. I thought that I want to make music that my daughter can listen to proudly, something that's moral regeneration, something that uplifts everybody that listens to it. I don't want my music to be limited to the youth. I want the old, I want the young, I
Mm.
want schools. I don't want it to be stopped because my music doesn't belong in a place. And reggae music is recognized as World Heritage by UNESCO. It's World Heritage, it's for everyone. So reggae was the perfect place to go.
Nah, dopeness, dopeness. So let me ask you this question. It's a bit of a hard question. In terms of the commercial aspect, because I mean everybody wants the bottom line is making money, right? Like, or so people say, like the bottom line is making money. Um, do you ever get conflicted between, especially in your creative process, between what you make for the love of what you're doing or to preserve the culture that you're preserving, and between the commercial aspect of music making, which is like, okay, we want to make a hit, we want to go viral, and we want to get as many bookings as possible. Do you ever get that dilemma?
No, I don't. It's actually quite an easy question for me because it's something I think about it quite often. Look, when you stand on your business, you stand on your morals. You know who you are. You know what it's about. There's, I mean, what are you selling out to? You're
Mm,
doing what is true to yourself. Also, when you start to consider that this world is very large, we're looking at a population of 7, 8 billion people globally. So something that may not be appealing in Johannesburg maybe very appealing in London or in Japan or anywhere else. So when you look at commercial, the argument then becomes in what sense and in what region.
mm,
Because
mm.
also people would say music is underground. Underground music doesn't sell as much as commercial music. But what is commercial music? Kendrick was considered commercial until he started putting his winning Grammys and stuff. And now Kendrick is a commercial artist. He's no longer considered
Underground, pretty much.
underground.
Yeah.
Same thing with J. Cole. So I don't. I think that it's more of a question of popularity. How far can you spread your message? If you can get your message far enough, you're then considered commercial. It's as simple as that. And somewhere in the world, there is a fan base for everybody, for everybody. And all you have to do is find where in the world your fan base is and expand on that. And then also expand on your craft. So there is really no need to sell out to a certain ideal or concept simply because that ideal or concept may not be appealing where your music is appealing.
Yeah, no facts. So there's always an audience. You just have to find it, find ways of penetrating to that audience, and find the best way of communicating to them. I've always believed that. I've always believed that. I always say art exists for the sake of art, and for as long as your art is coming from your heart, it will speak to somebody, and the person will happily reward you for the work that you've put in. And that's better than a manufactured like or a comment that comes from a bot or a bot listening stream by a marketing agency that's trying to prove a point. So I completely agree with you. Um, let's talk
Plus,
about. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
wanted to add,
Yeah.
when you look at it, there's different tiers of artists. Like there's artists who have transcended music. You have people like Tupac Shakur, Bob Marley. They've really transcended music, and they did it with consciousness, with being able to connect to the masses. They weren't selling out on their ideals. So that's also quite an interesting idea because if you want to become somebody that transcends and really connects with the people that you're making music with, then make music that the people need and not what you think they
Mm,
want.
that's a fact. And so let me ask you this, just to segue a bit. Do we still have such artists alive today? Because I mean, you think about, you look at, I mean, from Queen, for example, the Mercury dude who just was crazy about his delivery. There's Jimi Hendrix. There's Prince. You know, there's even Biggie. Biggie was very authentic, even within the way he made his music, although it was very lyrical, and not revolutionary as we might call it. Do we still have such artists in the world today who are purists? And if so, who would you put up there, like to that level to say, okay, this one makes art for the sake of it?
100%. I mean, when you look on a global scheme, I mean, America got so many people that are popping off. So obviously, like the guys I had mentioned earlier, the J. Coles, the Kendricks, these guys are, and I mean, art is also creating so much wealth for them. It becomes a situation where you're creating art because you want to, not because you need to. You're not hungry. You're making art because you want to. When you start looking in Jamaica, you can talk about legends like Burning Spear. I mean, that's somebody who you'd obviously put in that category. He's birthed so many careers off of his career. It's incredible. And for so many centuries, how many artists can say they've performed as consistently and for as long
Mm.
as him? That man has performed for longer than I've been alive.
Boss,
That's
and
a
he's still on
that's
tour.
reggae music is, you know what I mean? So there is artists like that. My question then shifts back to our African narrative and then looking at the SADC region, because once we look past our Brayu Masikelas and Miriam Makebas and those artists, then who do we have that
Mm,
takes that mantle next?
mm,
Perhaps there could be an argument that you could say the Brenda Fassis and them
mm.
maybe with the next generation after that. But from the 2000s going forward, who is the next generation on the Southern African level? That's the big question for me, because I
Yeah.
feel like we're a sleeping giant. We're waking up the world, and we really need to recognize our power and direct it in the right direction.
And I love that because that kind of speaks to my next point and my next question. You know, the fact that to really transcend, to really be heard, you need an audience. You need a big enough audience. And what you find is, in West Africa, for example, you had your Reggie Rockstones and who really carried the torch for Ghana, but really did do a lot in the West African sense. You have your Baba Miles and your the dude who's an albino. I can't remember his name, but anyway, you've got your Femi Kutis and your Fela Kutis, and the difference between them and us down here is they really transcended and really broke out in the entire West African region, and that means it was a lot easier to move north and to move south. I'm from the DRC, and I mean, in the DRC, you have your Luambo Makiadis and your Kofi Olomides, right? But and our only saving grace is we're a large country. We literally cover North Africa to Southern Africa. So if you blow up in the four corners of the Congo, you will definitely move into Southern Africa, Northeast and West. And for SADC, I just feel like we need to break those borders because down here we are one people. You can say what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are one people from Angola to Mozambique, from Zambia to South Africa, right? And there's a lot of movements happening. Like, there's always someone going to South Africa, going to Zambia, going to Angola, going to Namibia. But it seems one thing SADC is failing to recognize, and this is something I've actually asked some really higher up people to say, why is SADC failing to recognize the power of art in joining these countries and making these borders porous? Because it's already happening. I mean, I'm sitting in Botswana right now. I'm talking to you. You're in South Africa. We met in Johannesburg a few weeks ago. You won an award in Zimbabwe. You know what I'm saying? We're already having a conversation about you coming to perform in Botswana. So in your I know I'm being political right now, but in your opinion, what do you think it'll take to get us to that point?
Well, For me, and my answer will go back to my previous album, which is Akebulan. You know, Africa is not our original name. It's a name that was imposed upon us. Akebulan is who we are. A borderless Africa is what needs to be promoted. When we start looking at an Africa as one, as a united place, then you start to be looking at strengths. But I think it may benefit people, maybe colonial, ex-colonial contracts, and so on, and who knows, whoever else, to keep Africa segregated and separated from each other. Because when we distance from each other, obviously we're less powerful, we're less impactful. When the question comes towards the arts, I think when you look at Africa, there's so much going on. In the continent, you're looking at unemployment, you're looking at hunger, teenagers heading households, so many crazy things happening that I think music then starts to be viewed as something to be put on the back burner. But
Mm.
interestingly, when you look at the money that we generate and give to the economy and the GDP, music is one of the big contributors. So rightfully, it should be recognized. But unfortunately, there's so many things that we have to fix. Also recognizing that we're a young democracy. I'm 37 years old. South Africa is 30 years old, meaning that I'm older than the Republic of South Africa. That's a crazy thing to think about, you know what I mean? So if you think that in that space of time, we've achieved so much as a young nation, that we've now taken piano to the world, and there's so much that they're doing, that shows that Africa has a lot of potential, but I think also we have to lend a bit of time. Because when you look at Western Africa, they've had like 80 years and
Mm.
so on of freedom.
Mm.
So there's been lessons that have been learned, and there's been structures that have put into place, and there's been a lot more happening, even though 80 years is still not a long time, because there's people that are 80 years old and older that's walking this earth. So, you can't compare it to a nation like in America, where you're looking at 400,
Mm.
500 years of being a nation. It's completely different. But I think that togetherness is the key for us, because if we can come together as Africa like a fist, then you're looking at power, then you're looking at unity. But as long as we're looking at each other and saying that we're foreigners on our own land, we got a problem.
Yeah, that's I completely agree with you. And I think some of the media that we have, some of the means of communications that we have, like music, and music that is not, because I'm against anything generic. I always feel like whatever I listen to needs to speak to my soul before I can communicate it to the next person. And honestly speaking, these two genres of music, I'm not necessarily a reggae head, if I could say that. But it is a genre that speaks directly to my soul. There's no filters. Whenever you hear those strings and you hear that drum, it penetrates, right? And it shows that's a purely African sound. And of course, hip hop being a derivative of that, is really what allows for us to be able to translate some of that sound that we can understand into a medium that is a little bit more understandable, especially for the people who don't necessarily understand what reggae is and what music for the soul is. So let's talk about the future a little bit. In terms of where you are now and everything you've achieved, where do you see yourself in say 3 to 5 years, and what do you see yourself achieving?
Well, we're building something so much bigger than just myself, as Rough Cut Studios. Because, for example, I have my daughter that's 15 years old. She's now stepping into the industry and honing her craft to becoming an artist. So mentoring and leading other artists is a big part of what I do. But I also see us expanding our music and taking it further, and it's growing day by day. So I think even 3 to 5 years is a bit far on the trajectory, because the expansion is happening so fast for us. So I definitely see us performing and setting up a Jamaican stage that will be taking African artists across to Jamaica to come and perform on, thereby increasing the reach of Africa, and also strengthening the artist trades between the Caribbean
Mhm.
and and Africa, because I think it's very important for us to show that closeness and to work close together with each other. And then, of course, we're going to be working very closely and signing with June Isaacs, who is the wife of Gregory Isaacs. who will be helping to book and promote us within the Caribbean, which is a very powerful thing to be working with legends like that is such a blessing, you know. So we're looking very forward to that. And everything I'm talking about is not long distance. We're talking about perhaps in the next month or so. So I'm not even looking quite far out. Then, of course, you know, like I said, we want to submit our music to all the awards and so on. We want to, you know, put it out there so that people can listen to it, get recognition. Not really for the recognition, but I think the marketing, because the more that
Mhm.
people know about your music, the more people are going to listen to your music.
Mhm.
So getting the music out there, and then of course working more closely with the charities and foundations that we work with, because I'm a firm believer that as artists, we always go to these communities asking them to help us to build our careers, to donate money, to do all different things for us. But how many times do we go back and do things for these communities? So that's something that we obviously, as Rough Cut Studio, take very seriously and make a point of, and we always do things for the communities. So obviously increasing that, and also working through our church, which we always keep very close with us. You know, you have to keep God above all. So spirituality, give back to the community, expand the music. That's the plan.
Yeah, that's dope. That is amazing. And, you know, in my audience, there's always like young people who are looking and saying, "Hey, man, those guys, they look like they've made it in life and they don't know the struggles, right?" And I don't really want to. The struggles are there. I've stopped asking about challenges and struggles because they're always there. They come from left, right, and center, and we always face them every day. But I just want to give for you to give one of these young people a word of encouragement. One of these guys who's really trying and feels like they're not moving forward. What would you tell them if you had to tell them some word of advice?
Well, you know, and it's something that I always say is that music is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're in it for a long haul. It's a long run, and so be prepared for the long haul and the long run. And long runs and long hauls, there's pain, there's sprained ankles, there's injuries. You got to fight through the wall. You got to fight through your own mentality, telling yourself to stop. You've got to keep on pushing forward. Sometimes you look around, there's nobody around you. You feel like, yo, have they left me all behind? Am I alone right now? You have to just keep on pushing, because also sometimes when you're looking around and seeing nobody around you, you could be so far in front that you've left the whole pack. So just keep on pushing. Just keep on pushing. Whatever you have at hand, you know, sometimes people say, look, I want to make music, but I need a studio and I need producers and I need this and that. Look, if you want to make music, start with what you have on hand. Get a paper, get a pen, start writing your songs. You don't even need beats. Go to the music that you have on your phone. Select somebody else's song right on top of their music. You know what I mean? Go to YouTube. Download, listen. Don't download people's beats. No, no, no. That's wrong advice. Don't download them, but listen to their beats. Write to their beats. Start honing your craft, because when the opportunity does come, when you finally do get that studio or that engineer or whatever you were saying that you needed, you're gonna be so ready. You're gonna shut it down, and it's gonna start something powerful for you. So just be strong, just keep on pushing forward. I know it's a hard road. I've been walking this since 13. I'm in my 30s now. I know it's a very hard road. Sometimes you may not have money. There'll be many people that don't believe in you. There'll be people that believe in you but cannot help or support you. But just take whatever good energy that you can, whatever good criticism you can, keep on
Mhm.
building on what you're doing, keep on going forward, and something good will come out of it.
That's dope, man. I can't even add to that. You said it all. And that part about sometimes you're alone because you're so far in front reminds me of a video I saw where these guys were they're doing this ice skating race, and this one person lapped everybody and actually ended up behind the last person. And
Yes.
she was just following them around. And
Yeah.
I guess the other guys thought they were chasing her, right?
Yeah.
And like they actually forgot and thought I guess the person in front thought, "Oh, I'm first." But
Yeah.
the one had actually already lapped them and was to the end of the race, and it was such a confusing experience because you're looking at this person and you want to tell them, you know what, well, keep going, but sometimes, like you said, you're so far in front and you're alone and you feel like you're lost, but you're not. You're actually doing something great. All right, cool, man. As we start wrapping up, how do we get your music? How do we follow you? I know I follow you on social media already. I've been doing that for a while now. And that's to the power of social media because, I just saw one of your posts. I was like, no, this dude sounds really dope. Let me just throw it out there, follow him, and maybe someday we're gonna meet up. So how do we find you and how do we follow you? How do we get your music?
So to get the music, I'm available on every digital platform, your Spotify's, your Deezers, your iTunes, basically anywhere online that has music. Just look for Don Dada. I'm very hard to miss. You're gonna see the Rasta man along. I'm very hard to miss. So just look for Don Dada. Alternatively, if you're looking for me on social media, all my handles across all platforms is always the same. So whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, it doesn't matter. Handle's always the same. It's at Don Dada Music. That's at DonDadaMusic. No spaces, and you'll be linked directly to me. It's they're all verified pages. So yeah, that's how you'll find me. And then alternatively, you can check out my website, dondadamusic.com. That may also link you back to the social media and so on.
Nah, dope, dope. And you got merch? You got merch that you're selling?
I haven't yet got the merch. I haven't yet got the merch, and the reason is because I want to make the merch something that's special and authentic. That's something that's true to me. Everybody makes merch and they make T-shirts and they make caps, and
Yeah.
I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to do something special, something that the fans are going to appreciate. So I'm not rushing into it. Like you said, sometimes it's more about the art than the money. So this one is
Yeah.
about the art.
But do make the t-shirts and the caps too, because I think those are all they're fast movers, people always appreciate getting a memento, especially because, I'm really wanting you to come to Botswana like first quarter of 2025. So it'll be great just to leave the people here with something. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, look, I mean, if you like you're saying, Eddie, if you ask for it, I gotta deliver. That's how I work. If people ask for it, I deliver. So we gonna do it. We're gonna
I
do it.
know,
We'll get
dope,
the
dope,
team
dope.
ready, be ready for it.
I know, fresh. Because I've already spoken to some guys here. There's a friend of mine who's got like a shop, a small, really cool shop, and he's talking about stocking up and really getting some locally made, products. So it's gonna be a big part of what we do next year. Everything is in play. I've spoken to. I've got this thing that I'm doing with a friend of mine called Sakele. I'm sure you know him, Zala Zala.
Yeah,
And we've been talking about it for over 6 months now. And slowly but surely it's taking shape because he threw reggae at me and I'm like, dude, how you gonna throw reggae at a hip hop head? But
right.
every other month, right? It's like the steps are actually getting us closer. And I can see the end, even now. When I met you, I
Yeah,
could see the end. When I spoke to this guy last week, I could see the end. So I really feel like reggae is such a very strong genre and strong family and strong culture that it doesn't take me calling someone twice to make something happen, you know?
yeah.
And I feel like that's what Sakele saw. And he was trying to make me see it, but I had to really get into it to really appreciate that. So as soon as I spoke to you, as soon as I spoke to Pepsin, as soon as I spoke to my guy here and I mentioned your name and I mentioned his name, and he was like, I know those guys, it's on. I'm like, we're already halfway there. So,
Yeah.
so shout out,
Nah, that's
man.
beautiful. Like you said, the reggae is it's such a strong genre. That's it speaks to the hearts of the people, and especially in Africa, it's one of the dominating genres and most adored genres. If you look through all of the nations and you look at their top 10 most listened musics, reggae is usually in that list.
Mm.
So it's something that's so appealing to us, and it's something we sorely need because you look at morals that have been slipping and society. Reggae is something that uplifts and motivates and gives you heart and balance. And so we need reggae music. And I think that that's something that usually when you approach politicians, it's an easier sell than hip hop because hip
Mm.
hop's name sometimes gets a bit tarnished,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the easier sell. But I'm trying to do both. I'm doing
Yeah.
both right now, you know. So I feel you.
We're all good, man. We're on the same lane. Hey, man, let me not take too much more of your time. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat. So usually these interviews drop now they'll be dropping. Facebook tells me to drop my content on Monday at 10 p.m. So I'm gonna do just that. So I'm gonna take like the whole of pretty much the whole of next week just to cut it up nicely, edit properly, and then what I'll do is I'll give you a like a 3 day heads up to say it's dropping
Okay.
on this Monday. But what I'll do also is once it's edited, I'll just send you a copy of the interview as well so that you can use it as you see fit too.
No, thank you, Eddie. I appreciate that. Like so much. That'll be dope. Yeah, can't wait to see it and can't wait to do all the works that we're talking about. It's gonna be fire,
Awesome.
you know?
I'm back in Joburg again at the end of the month for the Marathon Heights. So
Oh, nice.
I think I should be in Thursday 28th, probably like lunchtime. But I'm gonna hit you up. Maybe we can have like lunch or do dinner and chat
Cool.
some more on some of these things.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And also, I just wanted to also give you a heads up. February, I've been invited for the whole month. So 1st of February all the way to the 28th to Jamaica to do the whole of Reggae month.
Wow,
So
nice.
that I'll be doing a prominent stage every week, and then I'll also be laying the groundwork to set up the stage that I just told you about. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's also a vibe that I'll be on.
Dude, you should probably turn that into a documentary, like the whole thing, because
Yeah,
that is huge.
that's the plan. That's the plan.
That's huge. All right, man. You take care of yourself and let's stay in
Thank you,
touch.
brother.
Again, congratulations for yesterday. Well done. Keep it up. And yeah, we'll stay in touch, bro. Take it easy.
One
All
love,
right,
my brother.
man.
You have a blessed day.
You
Easy.
peace.
Peace.